Let's talk a little bit about innings and how pitchers get used and how you consider that when you're getting ready to make trades. We have a list of some guys to go through. I'm going to turn that over to you and let you kind of lead the discussion on these guys, but it's definitely something that does not get considered very much. It seems like, especially in fantasy, when these ace type pitchers or guys that we really think can help our teams get moved to other teams.
Yeah, when you're looking at players for the rest of the season, innings do matter. And something else that I think matters that not a lot of people talk about, it's not just innings, but it's also pitches thrown, because not every inning is created equally. You could throw, an immaculate inning, or you could throw 30 pitches in an inning, and you're getting pulled earlier with the more pitches that you have. So what I did was I went to Savant and I looked at the difference of pitching of pitchers who've thrown more pitches this year than they did last year in the majors.
Hmm.
And I've got 9 pitchers listed here. So what I'm going to do is go over each of them with the amount of innings they threw last year and compare it to the amount of innings we have this year so far. And then we'll see if maybe together we can come up with if we're worried about any of these long term, or if it's just, it is what it is. So right now we've got Reid Detmers, who pitched 63 and 2/3 last year, and a lot of that was in relief.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this year he's already at 125 innings. I think with him, I think innings is a bit of a concern, especially for a team who is acquiring him. That being said, I think that whoever does acquire him will have a spot open for him, and I think he's going to be okay for the most part. I think a lot of teams who are going to be going for him, they're going to be competitive and trying to win.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think in the long run that's something to be overly concerned about with him. I'm not sure what you think about him.
Yeah, he's 27. I think he's ready to kind of, get ready to be rolling here. Last year, you're right. He was kind of in between jobs there in the bullpen. I was calling for him to be the closer because I really like the stuff there.
Yeah.
He did pitch in 61 games last year, but only 63 innings. But to your point, he's made all 22 of his starts as scheduled so far this year and has 125 innings. And so there is some concern there, in terms of the added buildup. His career high in innings for the Angels was 148 back in 2023.
Okay. I think we're fine with him. I'm not too worried. The next one I have here is Cade Cavalli. Last year, 48.2 innings. This year, 116.2 already. And this is Cavalli coming off of an injury, which took a couple years to come back from. I'd be worried a bit about him. That's a really big jump in innings.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Nationals are going to try and compete, but it might get to the point where they might spread out his starts or pull him a little bit early just to conserve as much as they can. So he's someone I would be worried a little bit about down the stretch.
I agree with you on that because I think, here's the weird situation that he's in with all the injuries that he's incurred. He's 28. He's not a 23-year-old guy that they're looking to preserve. And so Cavalli, I think, is out there for the duration. And I think the other part that I worry about with him is that he throws a lot of pitches because he's not always super efficient. His walk rate isn't bad. It's actually come down quite a bit from what it was before, but he does throw a lot of pitches. And when you get a lot of strikeouts, you have a tendency to throw more pitches, right? So he's had 3 games this year where he's had a dozen strikeouts or more. And that adds a little bit of a toll there. So I am a little concerned about Cavalli.
Mm-hmm. The next one I have is Michael King, 73.1 last year. Mm-hmm. He's already at 125.1. He does have a history of injuries, so I'd be worried a little bit about him being worked too hard. And if the Padres, they don't compete by the end of the year, they might just shut him down for the last couple of weeks just to conserve things for next year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me too. He's not one of those types of guys that's the high octane type of pitchers, but there are a lot of miles there. He only threw 15 games last year, and like you said, the 73 innings. If you look at the body of work for him, His high watermark in innings has been 173, but we have to remember as well, the first 4 or 5 years that he was in the league, he was not starting games. He was pitching out of the bullpen. And so we're kind of getting into that sort of uncharted territory. He's within 50 innings of his all-time high when he made 30 starts for the Padres back in 24.
I've got Braxton Ashcraft here. Last year, he pitched 69.2 professional or major league innings, but he also pitched 48.1 in the minors. So you add those up together, it's close to around what he's at right now, which is 122.1. With him, I just worry that he's just getting too tired right now, and maybe you can see it in his performance. He's just not where he was. So I wonder if there's fatigue there, or if it's just, I don't know, pitchers or hitters are figuring him out. Regardless, though, I think they're going to continue using him. Just might not be as deep into games as it once was.
Yeah, I think fatigue is definitely setting in there. He's pitched less than 5 innings. In the last 4 starts, he's only got 19 innings total. So it looks like the Pirates are kind of in that mode of, maybe trying to preserve him a little bit. I think in redraft leagues, the window to sell him was probably in early June after he had that spectacular May. And you could kind of see read the tea leaves and kind of see this coming. Although the stuff looks really good, the velocity is still up. The chase percentage is out of this world. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. There are some command issues there, and he does appear to be fatigued a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I've got Cam Schlittler, 73 major league innings last year, but he also pitched 73.2 minor league innings. He's already at 136.2, but I don't see him or the Yankees slowing down at all. He's been a stud. He's been an ace. They're trying to get to the playoffs. Now they do have Rodon coming back, and they do have someone else I can't remember. Clark Schmidt.
Yeah, Clark Schmidt.
Yeah, so maybe they'll spread him out a bit. But regardless, I can't see them pressing the brakes on him.
No, he shows no signs of slowing down. I mean, the White Sox had no answer for him this week. He had 8 strikeouts. I think he only gave up 1 hit against them when in the game that I was watching. He's terrific, and he's 25. They're going for it. We know that they're going for it. To your point, I could see a scenario where maybe there's a phantom, leg injury or something where they put him on the IL and try to just give him a little bit of a breather. But he also doesn't seem like the type of guy who wants to do that, similar to what we were talking about with Ohtani earlier in the show. The Yankees would have some options potentially. I think Rodon is throwing either live BP or is facing hitters, I think, this weekend. So he might be on his way back shortly as well.
Yeah, that'll be some good relief for the Yankees.
Yes, for sure.
Here's a big one I have here is Jacob Misiorowski. Last year, he pitched 66 innings, but also 63.1 in the minors. Mm-hmm. This year, he's already at 120.0 innings. They're already stretching his outings out. The time in between outings. They're already trying to find time for him to get some in-season rest. They definitely need him down the stretch, but they also need him in the playoffs. I could see them really not giving him as much time as he probably should on the mound. I could see either shortened outings, or I could see, another phantom injury, knee discomfort. He needs 15 days off. Mm-hmm. Fantasy wise, it's going to be a tough to rely on. On the other hand, though, I mean, he's so good where a short outing could be enough, to help you through your week anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't think he's going to pitch as often, but I still think he's going to be one of the best.
Look at what he did last week. I mean, he only threw 5 innings against the Rockies and he struck out 12 guys, and then they took him out. I think that they will shorten those outings. The one thing that's really kind of cool about the Brewers is they have a lot of options that they can use to try to buy guys a little bit of time. Right now they are going with the 6-man rotation to try to buy him a little bit of a break and spread out with Henderson and Sproat Gosser is there. Shane Drohan has been good too, but he's also looking for a little bit of rest. He was supposed to pitch on Wednesday, I think it was, and he's actually pitching tonight against the Angels instead. So they've extended that a little bit. But they've got other guys that they can use to help out there, like Bryce Wilson and Chad Patrick. Now, I'm not saying that they're anywhere near what they get with Misiorowski, but Kyle Harrison should be on his way back at some point with this forearm tightness issue that he has. So they'll have options. I think that they're trying to extend him, like you said, Dave.
Yeah. All right, I got 3 more here. We'll go quickly. Brandon Young, last year, 57.2 professional innings with 33.1 minor. This year, he's already thrown 97.2 major league innings plus 16.2 minor. I could see them. I don't know, actually. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if he's in their long-term plans here or if this is just like found money and they'd let it ride. But whatever they feel about him, I think he could be not shut down, but miss out on some starts down the stretch.
I don't feel like I have my finger on the pulse of him very well. I have him in several leagues, and I sort of play matchups with him. I don't start him every week, but he's 27 as well, and I guess I had thought that the Orioles would have better pitching than what they have at this point. And I look at him and I see, I wonder if he's just kind of a placeholder until they have other options.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's the best way to put it. He's just there right now.
Yeah, like he's their 5th starter, clearly, right? But
yeah,
he has done fairly well this year for them.
Yeah, and that's what I meant about found money. It's just, oh look, I found a quarter under the couch. I can do something with it.
Right.
Max Meyer, 64.2 last year, 110 this year. Last year it was because of injuries. I'm not too concerned. I just don't want to see that number get too high because there are always injury concerns when it comes to him.
Yeah, this is his all-time high by quite a bit. I mean, his highest innings total in the major leagues is 64, so he's almost double that now as is. Now, granted, he's also laid up right now and getting that break, so I guess we'll have to see how they bring him back and when they bring him back. But he's been fantastic this year, a guy that I was pretty high on coming into the year, and I was looking at as a potential 3rd starter. He's far surpassed my expectations.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, Justin Wrobleski, 66.2 last year, 112.2 this year. I'm not too worried about him, although I think like health-wise, but I think eventually he's just going to move back into the bullpen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's been terrific for them this year. He obviously was in the All-Star game. He's got 11 wins. Fastball really couldn't break a pane of glass at this point, but he's working to get outs. He doesn't walk anybody. There's a lot to like there. I do think you're right. I do think that eventually he ends up moving back to the bullpen for sure.
Yeah. I've got a couple other things here before we move on to our other segment about the schedule coming up. I think it's important to note here that when we're making trades and picking up players, and the schedule does matter. Now, just some quick tidbits. The Rockies have 25 more home games, but they do play the Padres 4 times. So that's something to make note of, that the Padres get to go to Coors for 4 games. The Rockies are on the road for 25 games, and they'll be playing against the Cardinals, the Nationals, the Yankees, and the White Sox. These are the 4 teams that it's their first series after a home series, if that makes sense. So those are the first teams that they play while on the road, and those are typically when the Rockies hitters are at their weakest. So it's something to make note of for those 4 teams if you're looking to make a trade for a player. The A's, they have 24 home games down the stretch, so keep an eye out on that. For the Astros, play them 4 times to end the season. So if you have Yordan Alvarez for the final 4 games, I think you're doing pretty well.
I would say so.
Yeah. And then the home offense place is in Seattle. They have 25 home games left, and they play the Angels 4 times. But every other team that they face at home is actually a playoff contending team. Now, it's the American League, so there's a lot of contending teams. but it's worth noting that they do have a tough schedule down the stretch. So, and then one last thing is that the remaining doubleheaders, there are 5 different days with doubleheaders for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to note that the Yankees have 2 sets of doubleheaders against Boston and then against Tampa.
Oof.
If you're looking for, a reliever to maybe get a couple saves, maybe look to New York. Bednar's obviously gone in all your leagues, but if you want to pick the next in command, Bednar probably won't pitch in both of those games.
Correct.
There's a chance for an extra save here and there, and sometimes that can mean everything in the standings. So I'd be looking at the Yankees down the stretch, and you and I were talking about how their bullpen has really come through as of late. So
yeah, you could pick up Paul Blackburn like you did last week
for 3 minutes.
For 30 minutes.
Literally, he gave up those 2 home runs. I'm going to pick someone else.
Yeah, you ended up dropping him pretty quickly as well. Yeah. Sorry, just a little joke at your expense there, Dave.
That's all right.
No, that's okay. No, but to that point, though, they have had some really good bullpen help there this year. So, yeah, absolutely. Doubleheaders are really important to look at because you might be able to vulture or save somewhere that you weren't expecting, like St. Louis and Cincinnati, maybe somebody like Jojo Romero, if he's back and healthy and not traded, ends up vulturing a save, or somebody like TJ Antone for Cincinnati vultures a save. There's a number of different options that could happen there, and that could make a difference.
Not just that, too. Offensively, the catcher won't catch for both games.
Correct.
So it's one less game that catcher will get any offensive stats for you.
Okay, Dave, I know that this is to hurt me because I have several of these guys on my team, pitchers and some of these hitters as well. But the last segment that we wanted to do before we get to our mental health minute involved several players that we've been on the fence about dropping. And then as a corollary to that, just sort of asking ourselves the question, how do we start these players in leagues in which we're in? The first one that we were going to talk about, again, we talked about him a little bit last week, is Framber Valdez. I have no idea what to do with him.
Yeah, and he was actually the inspiration for this segment because I'm in the same boat as you. I have no idea what to do. Looking at different options and things like that, I was actually listening to The Craft the other day, and they were talking about Framber. Eno Saris was saying how Framber looks out of shape. He's sweating a lot. His stuff is down. Command is off. The ground ball rate is not where it should be. What he's not doing is throwing the curve, which was interesting because his sinker is bad. It's not a good pitch at all. And he's not establishing himself with that curve. The curve is his bread and butter. If he can get that curve going, he can offset it with anything else. But he's not doing that this year, and I don't understand why. And I felt really validated listening to Nick Pollock because he actually said what I've been saying too. It's that I hate putting him out there because I don't know what version of him I'm going to get. And I hate the anxiety knowing that I'm starting someone who should be good, but I might get Cy Young, or I might get, I don't know, Delman Young. No, he was a hitter. I don't know. I was trying to make a comparison there, but you just never know who you're going to get. And that's not what you should have with someone who, A, you've invested a lot in, and B, who should be better than he is. And I have no idea what to do. I think I'm just benching him until I see him do well. But then again, if I bench him during a good outing, then I've benched him during the one good outing he might have for me over a 3-week period.
Yeah, I've been really kind of miffed as well as to what the problem is. We don't know him, and so it's hard to always say, but I feel like he's got a little bit of an attitude problem. I feel like he's had an attitude problem. What he did last year in Houston still really sticks with me, with purposely hitting his catcher.
Yes.
To me, that's as a baseball coach, that speaks volumes to me about the character of the person that you're working with. But we're not here to talk about character issues. We're here to talk about his performance, which has been putrid. If you look at his StatCast data, The one part that I do find interesting is that it seems like he's having a hard time with the command of the curveball. You know, his walk rate is up this year. His strikeout rate is down. He's not getting as many whiffs as he did before. You're right about the sinker not being a great pitch, but he's throwing it a whopping 57% to lefties and throws it 43% against righties. Now, in July, we did see the curveball usage kind of start to ramp up again a little bit. It was his second most used pitch over the course of the month, over 30%. So maybe he's making a little bit of a course correction, but boy, I would have liked to have seen that course correction in April. He's just having a bad year, you know, and I don't know that I'm going to give him a mulligan either. I mean, this is a pitcher that I rostered as a 1A, 1B, you know, a strategy for me in some leagues that I'm in, thinking, well, I'm not going to get one of the top notch guys, but if I could get Valdez and like Joe Ryan or something like that, I would be pretty happy. That's just not worked out very well for me at all.
Yeah, I'm at a loss with him, and I think I might even just take the safe approach and just bench him. You can't drop him, because you drop him, he's going to be picked up by someone else.
Yeah, and then it'll be great. You know, I have him in Tout Wars. That's where I have him, and I have him on the bench right now. I have to see something before I can use him again. And believe me, that's hard to say with the pitching staff that I currently have constructed, because it is absolutely bloated and awful, the pitching staff that I have. Speaking of bloated and awful, another guy that I have on my Tout Wars team, Luis Castillo.
I think with him, the hard part is he's going to pitch no matter where he is. If he stays in Seattle or he gets traded, he's going to pitch. He's going to get out there. But he's not good.
Yeah, I'm done.
At all. Like a 5.06 ERA and a 1.39 WHIP. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm done. I wanted to give him a chance, and you know, he had a really bad April and a May that wasn't very good either. And then in June, there were some signs that maybe he was kind of coming out of it, you know, pitching in the piggyback role, but then they didn't like the piggyback role. And so, you know, they ended up moving away from that with him and Miller. And he's been starting again, and the results have not been great. You know, post All-Star break, 5 strikeouts in 12 innings, 158 WHIP, 6 ERA. I mean, he's throwing batting practice right now. I have him in tout. I think this will be the weekend that I get rid of him and try to find somebody else on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I'm done.
Another guy that's on this list for us too, Dave, that I'm a little more on the fence on than the other two is Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, with him, it's tricky because he's shown really good outings. Like, he's had really good outings this year, but as of late, it's just been pretty bad. The splitter isn't what it once was, though it's not too bad. I don't know if it's just old age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's getting up there. He's 35. I think he's going to get dealt at the deadline. So maybe depending on where he goes, another team can unlock something with him.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trade him. Or sorry, you can't drop him. I think you have to run him out there.
Yeah.
Simply because I think he can be better than he is.
Well, you got to use him. And, you know, part of the problem that he's had, and, you know, in June, he got really bit bad by the home run ball. He gave up 9 home runs in 32 innings, which is ungodly bad. And he's course corrected on that here in July, but he's also given up a lot of walks and hits and some hard contact. And so you wonder if maybe there's a mechanical thing that's happening there. And to your point, he's a 35-year-old guy who has pitched a lot of innings in the major leagues. You know, he's started over 300 games in the major leagues and has over 2,000 innings stored in that arm, you know. So you wonder if maybe that's catching up, but the guy does take the ball every 5th day, and I think you have to continue to run with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last guy that we had for pitchers on this list is Trey Yesavage. I am a mixed bag on him personally, although I know the results have been pretty decent. What are your thoughts on him?
The one thing that I would say for the most part, I'd run him out there. The scariest part for me, though, is that the walks are climbing. Like, he's he's 11.9% walk rate right now. He had that one game in San Diego where he couldn't hit the plate. He had like was it? Oh, sorry, it was Seattle. He had, or no, San Diego. Yeah, 7
Yeah.
walks in 1.2 innings. Um, I'm a little worried that there could be, part of the yips going on with him right there because he's finding it. It's difficult for him to find the plate, but I think he's talented enough where I think for now, at the very least, you got to run him out there. Um, he did well in his last outing. The splitter is a good pitch. The fastball is pretty good. He's young enough where he can probably put it all together. I don't know if Toronto has the coaching staff to help him do that because it seems like all of their pitching is tanking right now. But I think you got to stick with him.
It's funny to me because at the beginning of the season, people were drooling and oohing and eyeing over him and trying to fall over themselves to draft him. And I saw a guy that has a lot of talent. Obviously, we saw that in the playoffs last year, but I think a lot of people overestimated his strikeout ability. He gets a lot of whiff, which is great. And he doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, but he's not a guy that is like a high velo 98, 99 mile per hour type of guy, so he's relying a little bit more on finesse and command, which is ironic because I think a lot of people miscast him as a strikeout artist, and he's fine with that. I'm not saying that, he's a 24% strikeout average. That's fine. But I think people were looking at him as this next wonder kid of pitching, and I don't know that that's what he really is.
And I think the lesson is let's not focus on the playoffs when we see this. Like, he was great in the playoffs. Vladdy was great in the playoffs. A couple years ago, Vientos was great in the playoffs. But playoffs don't translate into regular season success. So let's maybe, this year's playoffs, whoever breaks out, let's not jump ahead and try and, push him up draft boards because he's going to be the next big thing. Just because he did it in October doesn't mean he can do it from April to August.
Well, it's like we always talk about. That's the tax you pay for the next year, right? It's memory front of memory stuff trumps a lot of time what we know about actual performance data. And as drafters, we have to really work on that. Dave, I'm going to ask you the same thing here quickly with some hitters that we have on the list as well. Jarren Duran, who you and I were just talking about off air, what are you going to do with him?
So I looked it up. He's actually the 100th ranked outfielder in terms of WOBA right now, with minimum 150 plate appearances. It's not good. It's not good at all. And you could see how frustrated he is. I mean, last night you and I were talking about how he was arguing with Wilson Contreras that he didn't tag up on a fly ball. You don't do that. You can't do that. You have problems with someone. You do that in the dugout after and say, hey, why didn't you do this? Get his perspective on it. Don't call him out in front of everyone. But he's feeling more and more like a one-hit wonder from a couple years ago. I mean, right now, players around him that are more competitive or that, you have to consider, it's like Carson Bench, Evan Carter, Cam Smith. They're all in the same range of doing what Jarren Duran has done. And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better.
No, I feel like he had an opportunity maybe to move him right around the All-Star break with people hoping that he might turn it on in the second half. But the metrics are really poor. To your point, the 2024 season, he had 285, hit 21 home runs and still 34 bases. That appears to be more of the mirage now. He does have 13 home runs and 15 steals, so he's helping you there. But a 195 batting average and a 252 OBP is absolutely killing you. I think you do have to look at moving on from him. Chisholm Jr. I got a chance to look at him close up this week with the Yankees, and he looks like he's going through the motions to me.
Yeah, he doesn't look like the guy we thought he was going to be back when he was with the Marlins. He's actually the 210th overall player in terms of WOBA. He was a second-round pick. He was actually my second-round pick, but he was second-round pick in a lot of drafts, and he just – other than some of the counting stats, he hasn't performed at all. And right now, you'd actually have to consider, like, who would you rather have, him or Xavier Edwards?
Xavier Edwards.
Him or Bryson Stott?
Probably Stott, but it's close.
And then him or Jackson Holiday?
Jazz.
Okay. But that's where we are right now.
It's you. Yeah.
But that's where we are. He is a second round pick, and now we're contemplating whether or not Bryson Stott would be better than him.
Correct. And I look at him, he left the game yesterday with dehydration. He looked like he was laboring while he was running a couple of games this week. He was also doing a lot of complaining. There was a lot of jabbering around with the umpires and different things. It just struck me as maybe it's a focus issue, but maybe he's also nursing an injury. He does have 16 home runs and 30 stolen bases, but I think most fantasy players were expecting closer to the 31 home runs that he had last year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like he's going to get there at this point. Next guy, Corbin Carroll. Interesting one to talk about here. You would not think about him not being a super valuable player down the stretch, but what are you seeing with him, and what are you thinking about doing with him?
Well, to be honest, I actually just had a change of heart, actually just thinking about him right now. As I'm looking at our show doc, I'm like thinking to myself, maybe I shouldn't be too hard on Corbin Carroll. I mean, he did start the season with the hamate injury, and he's had other, setbacks here and there, but he's 15-15 with a 249 batting average. In all honesty, I want to take away what I was going to say about Corbin Carroll. I think he's fine. He's not necessarily worth the draft pick that you made. So maybe the only thing I would say is maybe for next year, we should, no, maybe not, because last year, like 31 and 32, maybe if he's healthy to coming out of the stretch at the beginning, he's back to where he was. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about him?
Well, I think in a 15-team league, obviously you have to stick with him because you drafted him as a centerpiece, and you're just hoping that he gets hot. But he had an awful start of July. He had 169 in July, but after the All-Star break, he's got 2 home runs, and he's also got 5 stolen bases after the All-Star break. And he's hitting only 224, but that's a market improvement over 169. I'm a little worried about the batting average. He's hitting 249 right now, so you'd like to see that maybe kind of spike up a little bit. But I'm not too worried about him. The weather is getting warmer, and he lives in Arizona, so it's going to be warm all the time there. I'm willing to just kind of ride it out with him at this point.
Yeah, me too.
And the last one on our list here is a guy who has really been disappointing this year, I would say, Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, we all expected him to take that next step, especially when we found out he was playing through an injury last year, but he's not performed at all. He's had some hot stretches as of late, but not enough to really put him over the hump. 18 home runs, 8 stolen bases. That's not too bad. Not great for where he was drafted. 219 batting average, 23.4% K rate. He's actually the 21st shortstop in terms of WOBA right now. I got 2 comparisons for you. Who would you rather have down the stretch? Him or Mookie Betts?
Mookie.
Me too. And him or Dansby Swanson?
I would say I would lean Dansby there, honestly.
That's interesting. I probably would too, but it's funny that's where we're at right now. It's Dansby, who looked awful, like worse than Gunnar did at the beginning of the season. We'd rather take him right now than we would Gunnar.
Yeah, I think the hard part with Gunnar, it kind of reminds me again of the conversation we had about Vlad Guerrero last week, which is those guys at the back end of the first round. And there was a lot of people last year who were like, I'm happy to wait till the end of the first round and just take one of those guys. And if that was your strategy, and if that's what you did, it probably didn't work out real well for you. The back end of the first round is really going to face a lot of scrutiny this year. It's going to be really fun to watch, I think, over the winter to see how that ends up playing out for folks. But yeah, Gunnar has been a disappointment. Dansby, even though he's hitting about the same as Gunnar Henderson, has 16 home runs and 15 stolen bases. Kyle, by the way, if you're listening, I'm coming for my $5. Dansby's going to hit 25 home runs, I still believe. Okay. We're going to take our last ad break, and we're going to come back with our mental health moment. And one of the things that Dave and I talk about a lot in our text thread is confidence in our work, both in our work that we do for a living and also in our work with the podcast and with writing as much as we do. Dave and I together write almost 10 articles a week, I think, for different websites. And so we're constantly busy with those things in our free time. So Dave, I wanted to ask you, as men, we're kind of taught, explicitly to not exude supreme confidence a lot of time. And then sometimes when we do, it comes across as overconfidence, and maybe a little bit of a braggadocio attitude that we don't want to have around too many other people. How confident are you in your work, whether that be at school when you're working with the kids or when you're doing your fantasy baseball writing or the show?
When it comes to my work at school, I'm pretty confident. I mean, I've been doing it I've been teaching kindergarten for about 15, 16 years now. And I kind of know how to do it. And it'll be interesting this year. I'm going to be working with a new partner for half the year. So letting that confidence come out, and just believing in myself and what I know works and doesn't work. When it comes to, excuse me, fantasy and, podcasting and stuff, I'd say that's still a work in progress for me. I never want to feel like I know everything. I never want to feel like I'm not open to somebody, not criticizing, but just saying, no, you were wrong about this, or don't forget about this part and things like that. Even when we're on here, I always have, if you could see my screen, it's just notes after notes after notes. I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So I'm always willing to add to those notes, make those notes, and just be sure that I will say everything and get it all correct. I think what's important when you're confident in it, it's just not humble about it, but just you don't let people know that you're confident, and you're not putting your chest out like this just because you're right about something. It's I'm right, you're wrong. That's not the way to do it. I think that's important. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty confident at school, and when it comes to fantasy, I'm getting there with fantasy and podcasting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have going for us both, and I agree with you about being confident with work, is that there's this kind of saying that I use on a daily basis with my staff and with myself, essentially more than anything. It says, about authenticity, about if you're real with people, you don't always have to be right. And I think that goes a long way, both in the fantasy baseball world and in my real work as well, right? The idea that, I'm very confident when it comes to my work, and I'm still going to make mistakes. I know that, but I don't second guess myself about a lot of things anymore. And as a younger man, I would always second guess decisions that I made in the classroom, decisions that I made administratively. When I leave work at the end of the day, I leave work. I don't drag it around with me anymore. And that can be really hard to do in a lot of fields of work. And in education, it's really hard because you're working with other people's kids, and I'm working with other people's, mentally ill kids who are struggling with a lot of different concepts and different things that go into being in school. And so it's common nature to kind of do that and question yourself. But I really have tried to double down on being home with family when I'm there and kind of living where my feet are in that moment, if that makes sense. When it comes to fantasy baseball, I'm plagued by self-doubt a lot of the time. I love strategy. I love learning. I love continuing to kind of mull things over. I think my biggest issue is that I just play in too many leagues because I have a hard time saying no. I think if I could get it down to 3 or 4 leagues and I could really focus on it, I would perform better instead of like the 11 or 12 that I'm in right now, which is just a couple too many for me. I think that I've gotten pretty good at drafting again. Like I feel like I at the draft table, I'm pretty confident. It's the in-season management and strategy that I need to continue to work on. And quite honestly, being on the podcast with you and getting feedback from other people on the show really helps me refine that strategy and think more deeply about what it is that I should be doing. And so I really want to be able to learn how to mitigate my mistakes to be able to compete in deeper leagues. And it's also sort of what I'm trying to do in real life, right? Which is mitigate the mistakes enough that I can be competitive in the aspects of life that I really want to be competitive in. Dave, anything you want to add to that?
Just my quote of the week. It's from my favorite player, and I don't know if he was one of yours, but it's Ken Griffey Jr. said, "Confidence is how you go about your business. Cocky is when you have to explain it to somebody."
It reminds me a lot of what Michael Jordan said about, when you're good at something, people will let you know. You don't have to let other people know.
Yeah,
That's really very true.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, that's a great quote to end the show on. I hope you have a great weekend. Happy Friday to you and yours. I hope you guys have a terrific day and a weekend. For those of you listening, thank you again for listening and giving us an hour of your time each week. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe where you get your podcasts. And also, if you give us a like, we'd be most appreciative of that. We will be back with you next week where we will have a lot more clarity about how things are going to play out. The trade deadline will have passed by the next time we meet. Until then, have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Peace.